1976. Darcy and Daphne Davenport are married musicians who move to a remote cottage in the Welsh countryside to finish Daphne's new record.
Maybe I should just go back to London for a few weeks to finish the record there.
How about yesterday? You were recording for hours.
Yeah, it was all rubbish.
When Darcy explores deep in the forest to record audio samples, he stumbles upon a mystical sound never meant to be heard by human ears.
Gus, what is this?
Sounds like a spell.
It's sublime.
Drawn by the sound, a strange child soon becomes a part of their lives.
I followed the music.
You could hear that.
Sound travels here.
And from the forest comes something far older and far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined.
They're the old ones. If you stay out of their way, they'll stay out of yours. Probably.
And their lives soon begin to come apart.
Darcy is tainted.
There are things I haven't told you.
When words are left unspoken, beware what fills the silence.
There is a veil between this world and fairy. If you let the fairies in, they will guide you. You're not scared of me, are you?
Dev Patel, Rosie McEwen, and Jade Crute star in Rabbit Trap, a SpectreVision production of a Bryn Chaney film, now playing in theaters.
SpectreVision Radio.
Telemetry in launch condition.
Well, some other observers.
Hey, it's late night.
It's late night on the astral plane, where it's never too late. With your host, Ryan Singer.
It's more fun to believe.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me on another voyage, late night on the astral plane. I am very excited today because I've got a double duty. We've got a bonus double time guests here. Now, previously, I interviewed one of the guests, Ron Meyer, and I totally screwed this up, and we ran out of space on the hard drive, so we've rescheduled. And now I've got as a bonus, I mean, talk about failing upwards, Ron. We reschedule this and you're like, well, how about I bring my buddy, Mark Reeder, on? And we both join the show. And I'm like, okay, I need to screw up interviews more often.
Do you remember we had this revelation, the answers to everybody's questions? Did you get that part recorded or is it lost forever?
You know, it's, I'm glad you brought that up because it cut off right before, or the last thing I remember, the last thing that the video had before it cut off was, oh, and here is the answer to everything that everyone's been asking. And then it cut off. And I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I don't remember the exact wordage.
Me either. I think we lost it forever.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get lucky and it'll, we'll tap into source here today and be gifted those answers again. Now, we had a sprawling conversation last time that, we got into, the mysteries at the Bradshaw Ranch, the documentary film that I had watched not too recently from when we spoke. We didn't get into really the books, and I kind of want to launch off with, is this the latest book that you two have written together? Jesus Had a Near-Death Experience?
No. Go ahead, Mark.
No, Ron had his own near-death experience, and out of it came a fantastic novel that I was privileged to help him with, called Convergence. And Ron can explain to you more about how that was, but I just wanted to say up front, I've written now with Ron probably a dozen novels, and this has got this Convergence. Jesus Had a Near-Death Experience is fantastic, but Convergence is by far the best we've ever done.
Oh, okay, interesting. And what is Bigfoot Singularity is another one? Is that am I getting that right?
That's
Um,
correct. That was a while ago.
yeah, that was a while ago. And when did this creative partnership start? How, you know?
So I hired Mark to work for me, and I had a production company, doing some pretty big time stuff. I did movies and series and had a distribution company for educational videos. And I hired Mark to be a writer for the scripts for the educational video. And we met on the mat in Aikido and martial arts, kicking the shit out of each other.
Because you guys have written a couple books about that as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
so Aikido. I mean, Mark, when did you get into Aikido?
1975.
Oh,
I
okay.
was
So you're not to be messed with.
I don't know. I know I'm an old man now, so I might be easily messed with. Um, no, I was
He goes down and beats up the homeless people in Boulder.
yeah, right.
Oh,
No,
oh, two of them.
yeah, really. I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, pursuing my master's in history, and a friend of mine showed me a little brochure on Aikido, and I went down and saw one class, and 50 years later, I'm still training.
Oh, wow. The I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, so just north of that.
Ah, yeah.
What school in Cincinnati, if you don't mind me asking?
University of Cincinnati.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's my dad went there for law school.
Ah,
Um,
fantastic school. I really liked it there.
yeah, and now where did you grow up?
Iowa, Sioux City, northwest part of the
Oh,
state.
oh, okay. The I've only really spent time in the Quad City area over there,
Hmm. Yeah.
doing, when I'm doing on the road doing my job or whatever, stand up. But yeah, it gets so cold in Iowa during the winters. Now, okay, so roughly what year do you think it was, Ron, when you and Mark started working together when you first hired him at the production company?
I would say it was around the mid 1990s. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, in 95, you were doing a show on pioneers, and you asked me because of my historical background uh, to help you vet the information on it. And then I had a contact at the University of South Dakota, a Professor Wolf, that also helped us a little bit with it.
Okay, excellent. And now, if I'm not mistaken, you got what, 3 undergraduates, Mark, and a master's degree?
I mastered in three different disciplines as an undergraduate, and then settled on history for my master's.
Oh, okay. I mean, so yeah, you sound like the right guy to be vetting information. As far as now, has research and like investigation into, historical events and things like that, has that always been something that's exciting for you?
It was. It started as a sophomore in high school when I was asked by my history professor to do a paper, and I did one on the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor in World War II. And I just got excited by all the research. And since then, Ron hired me primarily to help him write scripts, but also to vet the scripts and to make certain that the information we were providing was correct.
Okay, very cool. You see, I mean, I think that's what I don't know. I don't want to say the world of the paranormal necessarily is lacking, but there seems to be a distinction, like maybe a watermark between, I don't know if you two would agree with this, but when it comes to like the filmmaking that you're focusing on too, especially, with the Bradshaw Ranch, which is more of a documentary and things like that. I know you both have, this history and experience in like the public television space and the documentary space like that. And I think those skills that are required and that honestly, it feels like they're expected in that space, right? To be vetted, to be accurate, to be, let's make sure we're getting history correct. To transfer those into, I guess, more supernatural content and things like that. I think that's a huge bonus and a huge plus that will make content actually stand out and rise above the din of the rest. Do you think that that's kind of where your focus has been, Ron, to make sure that, you're taking all these past skills and applying it to this field as well?
For me, absolutely. I did basic research in behavioral cybernetics lab at the University of Wisconsin back in the 70s. it morphed into the AI revolution. And my area of expertise was early childhood development. And of course, we had to, validate and provide evidence for everything, do these crazy experiments. I had to use, 6-year-old kids as subjects. And so I learned the scientific method. In fact, I produced probably one of the most successful programs introducing the scientific method to the educational community back again in the late 90s. And I'm still making money on it through Discovery Education, if you can believe that.
Oh,
The
wow.
kids in it, have grown up and had children now.
Yeah, no, it's wild to see that. I mean, I spent a very brief period as a public school teacher. I was just kind of a short-term sub who got hired full-time. And then I think about like, oh, how old, and these kids were, I don't know, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And now I think about how those kids are in their 30s, and I'm just like, oh my God, like
we're old.
Yeah, thank goodness. And the alternative is, not something that I'm ready for quite yet, even though we can talk more about that later. So let's talk about, let's get into convergence a little bit in this near-death experience, if we can, because I'm fascinated about that.
So in some ways, the Jesus had a near-death experience is more appropriate to talk about near-death experiences fictionally.
Okay.
I wanted to construct a thriller because I love thrillers. That's my form of entertainment, these days on streaming series. It just, takes me out of my normal way of thinking. And I know it's all kind of crazy and bullshit, but, it's fun. And so, or did you want to talk about the experience I had that led to convergence?
Well, let's, I think maybe let's start with a total. What's your number one thriller series right now that you'd recommend to people that you're like really enjoying, that you're watching or that you have watched recently?
Finished The Institute.
The Institute, okay.
The adaptation of Stephen King's. It's not the best thing, but it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think we just need fun stuff. It doesn't have to be.
Mark and I both like Reacher.
Oh, I love Reacher. My dad is also, I think he's watched every season probably 4 times, as well. Which to me is like really enjoyable because, and I have a couple of my best friends are just huge into the books. So when that series came out, they were super excited, but, okay. So you had I am interested in your near-death experience that led to convergence. What year was that?
A little background. I have prostate cancer, and I was doing the hormone treatment, but then they recommend that I do radiation in addition. And the radiation pretty much killed me. I was this close to death because it interfered with the absorption of liquid into my system along the lower end of the intestinal tract, which is, the intestinal tract allows a surface that the rest of the body can get nutrients and water out of it, and that had been disrupted. And so I was totally dehydrated. And during on the kind of the recovery period, I had this state where I had 2 realities going for me, an altered reality that was as real as the real reality for a period of time. And, Mark and I had finished Jesus Had a Near-Death Experience, and I wasn't inclined to write another one. I think Mark might have urged me about it, but I said, nah, I don't want to do it. And at one point, probably 2 days into that experience, it just occurred to me, oh, this is the basis of a science fiction novel. This alternate stream of consciousness or awareness that was parallel to the physical one. At least I think it was the physical one. And at that moment, it went away. And so after that, it just kind of flowed out of that as to what it should be. And it's kind of an apocalyptic look at what might happen if the LLMs, these new language model intelligences, get out of control and basically start destroying the world. and counterbalancing that are two different solutions. And the big problem with the AIs these are is that there's this distinction between self and other. You know, you probably remember that when you were in the the good group or the bad group in school, and everybody else was the other. You know, politics is full of the self and others, and when it's the others, you can kill them with impunity. And certainly, tribal, it plays out. It plays out on the international stage. It derives to a large extent from our biological heritage, where where the world is seen as the other, and we have to keep it at bay in some way, except for your groups. That's it's carried forward in all these forms. And so, one of the issues in terms of the new artificial intelligence, since it's trained on our language, which has a lot of self-other stories in it, and relationships between the world, these words of different people killing each other, and what that eventually it'll adopt that with respect to us. It's the self, and we are the other. And if it's superior, it'll destroy us because that's just what happens. You know, they don't care about us. So that's the premise. The extreme of the self-other distinction. My other expertise is serial killers. Did we talk about that before?
Very, very briefly. We talked about was the series, or was it a?
Oh, I've got multiple series on Amazon and all the streaming platforms. I like to say serial killers made me a millionaire. I had the #1 streaming series on Amazon for a whole summer before COVID, and so I have this weird expertise, and I can see that the serial killer in some way optimizes the self-other distinction. In other words, their victims are just the other totally, and they take great pleasure in torturing them and making see them suffer because they're the other. Kind of like, you know, some politicians we know.
Yeah, for sure.
And in general, people would probably know that as a psychopathic behavior, of which the serial killer is one manifestation of that. But it plays out a lot in business. A lot of people have risen to the top of their respective, probably economic situations or many situations, is because they're quite psychopathic. They can fire anybody with impunity. They don't care. Even plays out in sports. You know, they just don't care about the other person because they're the other. And by eliminating them, you enhance yourself or protect yourself. So, as in the new book, Convergence, it's postulated there's one form of AI that becomes the supreme vision or agent of the self-other distinction, and it's just willy-nilly destroying everything because it likes to, if you want to put it that way. And within that, you know, some of the originators that were part of the beginning of this whole AI thing, you know, are the kind of the heroes of our story. And they decide that they need to find out some way to stop this and figure out what's going on. And then it becomes kind of a thriller from there on. And there are two options that we lay out as possibilities. One is to create a non-biological form of the best of us and send that into space where there's abundant energy and they reproduce kinesthetically, where they just take material and create another one of themselves. There's no sex or anything, so you don't, you know, if you had a wife or something, you probably didn't want to share her with the rest of the world, right? So you know that creates the self-other distinction in a kind of a personal level. Everybody else is other with respect to that. And they're called von Neumann, constructors of von Neumann probes, you know, one of the most brilliant mathematicians of the 20th century. He calculated that the bombs weren't going to destroy the Earth back in the day of Los Alamos. And the other one is to modify us as biological entities in a way with a variety of new set points, which makes us immortal disease-free, brilliant, and we don't have to carry forth the self-other distinction in these new biological bodies. And these are the two other alternatives to what might happen. And it's kind of the story is to do any of these succeed or win, and what happens in the end, which I'm not going to tell you.
Well, yeah, no spoilers, no spoilers. See, I'm curious, Mark, about like the writing process, and like, Ron has this experience, realizes in the moment that what he's experiencing actually could be the foundation for this new book, and then as soon as you realize, I think it's interesting that as soon as you realize that, it goes away too, like you said, or it stopped. So how do you, because these are really big ideas. So when it comes to the idea of trying to, capture these big ideas into, a timeline or a story,
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys do? Do you just get together and you hash it out, or do you guys have a set process?
Well, this is pretty interesting because Ron's the only person I've ever collaborated on writing with anything. And it started with working for his company doing educational videos. And he mentored me at that. And then I was writing novels on my own at that time. And he mentored me with writing novels on how to find my voice and not just be shouting at the reader, but actually telling a story, which I thought was some of the most valuable advice I ever received. So to fast forward a little bit, one of the agreements that Ron and I make is that who's ever driving the bus, that is, whoever comes up with the idea, they're driving the bus, they have final say. And that takes a big load off of anybody's shoulders, because now you're not competing self against other. You're actually both on the bus, and you've acknowledged that this person is driving the bus because it's their idea. And so you work with them. You're in unity as you do it. So then there are coffee spots around Boulder, and Ron and I meet weekly, at least, sometimes twice weekly, where we will sit down. Ron is driving the bus, so he's coming up with the scenes and the ideas. I'm helping flesh everything out with character descriptions, with setting descriptions. Also, Ron's asking me questions such as, do you think this works? And I might answer, well, yeah, it works, but would it work better this way? And Ron goes, well, yeah, I can see that. Well, then what if we added this to it? So we kind of form a stream of consciousness talking while we're at these coffee shops. And the bad part of that is that people sitting next to us will sometimes join our conversation. Like
all the time.
I mean, one time a couple comes up to us, we were doing the Bigfoot book, comes up to us and goes, we saw Bigfoot.
Oh,
and
wow.
I mean,
they're like, they heard
seriously.
they heard their word, and they're like, that's a safe space to share, right?
Yeah. And for
One
them,
time a Qigong master came up to us and said, you're talking my language?
So this happens. The interesting thing about the Bigfoot couple was that they actually believed Bigfoot was this hairy creature that swings through the trees. But Ron and I don't look at it that way. We look at it from the paranormal point that Bigfoot has a ability to exist in a separate dimension and place itself in our paths when we need it. So Bigfoot opens up the possibility of the human experience becoming vaster and more nuanced. It's not just some hairy creature that swings through the trees and knocks on wood. So,
yeah,
so let me add to that just one thing. Each of us has an expertise, and my expertise is the science, and Mark's is fights.
Well, and history.
And if you're doing thrillers, which these all have kind of a thriller aspect to them, you got to have some fights, right? So if I were to write a fight, between, let's say, Ryan and Mark, I would say they met on the field and Ryan killed Mark. That would be my story of the fight.
And I would rewrite that immediately. just to let you know, Ryan, that
Ryan and 17 of his closest friends surprised Mark and attacked him unexpectedly, and Mark still somehow subdued them all. Is that?
But I would leave you alive.
Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. No, it's I wanted one quick thing that you brought up here about how the two of you see Bigfoot, and he like that it shows up. To me that like the word that first popped into my head when you said that was spirit guide, almost, or maybe what people would consider to be some kind of teacher, or right place, right time. I needed this, a synchronicity. Now, how would you classify, I guess, the overall feeling of, I don't want to say mission, feels like maybe too big of a word for Bigfoot to show up, but like you said, when you need it, to be there. Let's dive into that just a little bit more, because that's a fascinating idea to me.
So you want to get into the weeds on this? Do you know who Jacques Vallée is?
Yes.
You know his control theory?
Well,
he's going with right now?
No.
Should I just tell you?
Well, let's hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to get into the weeds on this Bigfoot spirit guide, this Jacques Vallée. We're going to be right back with Ron Meyer and Mark Reeder. I don't know where this is going to go, but I know it's going to be a great place. So we're going to be right back.
Hey friends, it's Daniel Noah here. I'm the director of SpectreVision Radio. So many of the ideas that permeate the genre stories we tell are actually based on real paranormal phenomena. The way we've represented these powerful experiences really only begin to scratch the surface, not just of the way they work, but of the way they feel. When the fine folks at Oni Press approached SpectreVision about creating a comic book series based on real paranormal phenomena, we jumped at the chance. High Strangeness is a series of 5 interconnected stories created by actual experiencers, committed to portraying the reality of paranormal experience as it truly is: strange, disorienting, beguiling, frightening, and awe-inspiring. It's got UFOs, cryptids, men in black, and I mean the real men in black, not the other men in black, synchronicities, interdimensional portals, a deep underground military base, and so much more. This October, Oni Press and SpectreVision are proud to present High Strangeness, a 5-part experiment in comic book storytelling, boasting an otherworldly cast of comic book talents like Christopher Cantwell, Christian Ward and Jock, Chris Condon, Ringo Award-winning artist Dave Chisholm, Cecil Castellucci, Timothy Renner of Strange Familiars, our own Jim Perry of Euphemet. Look for High Strangeness Book 1 on shelves October 8th at a local comic book shop near you. But be warned, when you look into the abyss looks back.
Okay, and we're back. Okay, so lay this out for me, because I'm not familiar with. Did you say is it the control theory?
Yeah, control. He posits there's a presence that's been guiding humanity since the beginning of language. Language is the key. Once humans got language, we're now talking to each other. Without language, we'd be grunting and maybe pointing and doing something like eek means nose or something, but we wouldn't be forming sentences, and we certainly wouldn't be doing math. In fact, we wouldn't be doing much, beyond a little bit more than, current apes do or so on. And the way this thing has been driving us forward is by keeping the mystery going. So it's not to solve something, but to keep the mystery going.
Wow.
So that might be a Bigfoot showing up in present day. I mean, I've done a couple series on Bigfoot, and these people have these experiences. It changes the world for them. Something's possible that wasn't before. It creates another mystery. So right now, Bigfoot is a big mystery thing that people are trying to figure out, but it just doesn't quite. It's kind of physical, not quite physical. Sometimes it's very paranormal, paraphysical, disappears before their eyes. They leave 3 or 4 footprints, and then they're just gone, where are the rest of them? So it has physical manifestations. And then UFOs are another case, or UAPs. They show up in a way that we can't explain, but it creates, now not everybody, but even Congress is talking about it. They're befuddled by it. the mystery keeps going. And if you go way back, and Mark could talk about that, things were occurring all the time that were mysterious to people. So that nobody ever settles on one answer because they can't. And it's kind of playful, probably, whatever that is. So that's his theory. And that's kind of where I'm going these days in terms of my field research is to try and verify that. Because I've had things that both physical and it does it in two ways. One is with these physical things. The other is you've heard of Jungian archetypes or Campbell and mythologies that are part of our mental makeup, in some way. And it can mess with those too and changes those.
Wow.
And these two things are what he calls, and I think one of the most brilliant biochemists, inventors at Stanford. Both of these people were members of this thing called the Invisible College. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
And they get these downloads, which is another form in which this thing communicates with the technology. Like Steve Jobs got one of the cell phone. One of my Enlightenment teachers worked for Steve for a long time and told him that he got a vision of it, and then he made it happen. So that's that other side, not so much the physical side of something showing up in your field, a quick vision of a hairy creature running across the road or something like that.
Yeah.
And if you watch Skinwalker Ranch, all that ever happens there is something messes with their stuff, and it's just more mystery after more mystery after more mystery.
Plug
Nothing's
one
ever
hole, two
solved.
more spring, right?
Huh?
You plug one hole and then two more spring out like the cartoons. And you think to me, I love that you've brought this up, because to me, life is all about mystery. And I was actually having a conversation with my friend yesterday. I was like, I don't know when Bigfoot's going to get solved, if it ever will, but as soon as it does, you can guarantee there will be something there that takes its place, if not two things that take its place that are even more of a mystery now all of a sudden. But that is interesting that we could be being led down this mystery path of life in general. Yes. I don't know. Historically, Mark, I wonder, I'm guessing the two of you have talked a little bit about this. Historically, do you see that some of these mysteries, like we actually we're allowed, or our curiosity can solve it, and then more bigger mysteries spring out because of it? Is there any like historical basis for that? If you've even looked into that?
Well, science, I don't mean to step on Ron's scientific expertise, because he really is a scientist, but historically, science is itself, with the advent of the scientific method with Rene Descartes in the 16th century, and then the people like Galileo, Robert Hooke. These are all scientific individuals that laid a foundation for investigation of phenomena. So Hooke uses a microscope. He sees these little things, and he calls, under the microscope, and he goes, wow, those things look like cells. Now, when he says cells, he's thinking about the cells that monks live in. So he says, well, the human skin has cells in it. You go 200 years into the future, and you've got a whole bunch of people looking at these cells saying, there's a lot going on inside of there. There's mitochondria in there. There's stuff going on that Hooke couldn't possibly see. Let's go something a little more modern. Faraday, for example, he's positing things about electricity. He knows it's special. He knows it's unique. He doesn't understand how it works. In fact, it isn't like he could touch it and put it under a microscope and look at it. But he knows it's special. Well, 50 years later, you've got, Ron, help me out, the guy. Maxwell, yeah. Comes up with all these equations on electromagnetism. James Clerk Maxwell actually doesn't know how these equations work, but he knows that they do work. So, so there's a mystery that mystery starting with Faraday and Volt back in 1799, Faraday in the 1830s, James Clerk Maxwell in the 1870s. You go to Tesla at the end of the 19th century and into the beginning of the 20th century. All Einstein, all of these people build on this mystery. And what happens when they solve a little bit of it or they find an equation that works? Just as you said, Ryan, two more holes occur in the dike, and you got more mysteries, more water coming in, and you're going, oh my God, can we ever solve this? And what do they try to do? They try to come up with a constant, a universal constant that says we can unify everything and that'll explain everything. What does paranormal science do? Paranormal science says if you're going to find that, you got to get out of the old rut you're in and expand your horizons beyond the simple scientific method. You've got to bring in interdimensionality to this in order to figure out what's going on. So that's another. So Bigfoot, in my way of thinking, is a metaphor for the mystery that we're talking about. That you and Ron both talked about, and I think you agree with. So it can be a metaphor for the larger mystery that keeps unfolding. We get more information, but it's like a flower. It just keeps unfolding and unfolding and unfolding and unfolding, and we will never find all the answers, but we will be richer for the investigation of it.
Yeah, I love that. And it is, I mean, this is why I love talking to people who are smarter than me. Because I get these moments of joy. Now, and when you say that, I think of the flower of life, and, sacred geometry. And there's just so many different, whether we want to call them rabbit holes or, journeys to take. And that's where the juice is for me. That gets me juiced up, like in life, when like there's a new mystery, or I find like I tell people all the time, I'm like, thinking about consciousness blows my mind in a very like onomatopoeic kind of way, right? It's like I'm blowing the thing that is the thing that I'm thinking about, like whatever. But I love this idea that we have to kind of maybe surrender the idea that we're ever going to know it all. And then does that release us, Ron, to like an extended period of, just, I guess, a more blissful life, as Campbell, Campbell's all about following your bliss, and, these archetypes in our mind I know I'm all over the place right now, but when you said these things that actually can change like the archetypal imagery in our subconscious, that kind of really blew my mind. Cause I was thinking like, oh, we're getting like, it's like a reprogramming on a mass scale.
Yeah. I think, according to Valet, it takes place, at the deep universal level, but also at the individual cultural level, that we have motifs that derive from the cultures we're in. We don't share those with everybody. Our cultural ones, we have different ones. Interesting, like I think Bigfoot is available in quite a number of cultures, but dwarfs aren't nearly. Some of the earlier things. So what was your question again?
Oh, yeah. So like opening ourselves up to the idea that we can't solve these mysteries that we're searching for the answers to, and kind of knowing that in advance. Some people might call it a fool's errand to run after something like that. But in fact, it opens us up to a more blissful existence, kind of in the way Mark was talking about, right?
So if you want to look at a bigger picture purpose, is that this trajectory has led to the creation of what's possible in the universe through our technology and what's not possible. So we're shaping the universe because we are driven by this. If everybody said, okay, the Greek gods are it, we'll just stop and that's it, no more, none of that would have happened. But because we keep getting these anomalies to what we thought was the answer, it pushes us forward, and it's a co-creative process of creating what's possible in the universe. Now we can have cell phones, and having cell phones eliminates quite a bit, because they can't appear in that space anymore because it's dominated by the components in the cell phone itself. So we're actually creating the universe as we go, which some scientists now say is the purpose of life, to take information and mold the physicality of the world into possibilities, which then create more possibilities.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the positive side of it.
Yeah. I guess that's the positive side.
Well, there's another way to look at this too, Ryan, and that is that science, like most of us in today's world, has become siloed. You have a physicist working on the Big Bang right now, and you've got another one working on string theory and another on quantum mechanics. And while they all have basic knowledge, we become not just scientists, but doctors have specialties and everything else. It's very difficult to become general and know a lot of things. What I think is happening is that as that flower gets bigger, people are beginning to realize that if they're going to have an understanding of any of these mysteries, they have to step out of their silo. And that's the same for individuals too that aren't scientists or teachers or philosophers. You know, the everyday American is siloed by the news he or she listens to. So we're all beginning to understand that unless we step out of our silos, we really don't know what's going on. But we can become very blissful by being within our silo because everything's familiar to us. What I think is happening especially with the advent of the paranormal, and I'm a skeptic, don't get me wrong. Ron pretty much hired me for all of the Bigfoot books and everything because I brought a skepticism to it. I'm not even from Missouri, and I'm the show me guy. So at any rate, I think what's happening is that in order to understand more of who we are as a human, who we are as part of a larger collective, a universal collective within planet Earth, we have to step out of our silos. And the paranormal idea of that is, if you want to use Bigfoot, is Bigfoot say it comes to somebody in some paranormal form, and that helps them step out of the silo. And the next thing they know, they're looking at you not as a Democrat or Republican, they're looking at you as a fellow human being. There's no self or other anymore. And that's the key for me.
Wow. I mean, it's really kind of mind-blowing for me to think about this idea that, I guess, whether they're SPE, spontaneous paranormal experiences, or spontaneous mystical experience, depending on how the individual wants to classify them with, however they were brought up or however they identified the phenomena, actually jolting us out of something and reconnecting us to the general, which I love to think of it as, as the collective consciousness. Cause I'm pretty much an idealist in that way, as opposed to a materialist. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that is anything that we can do to get jolted back into the us and the we, as opposed to the me, that's really good medicine. And I love that this conversation has gone there, because just by the sheer fact of having this conversation about it, it's kind of jolted me back into that state of mind, which I really enjoy. Ron, you got something on this?
Yeah, so I did a movie it's coming out on near-death experiences, and there's a lot of differences, in terms of what they report coming back out from, going into the non-physical world. But there's a couple commonalities, probably three, that there's this form of unconditional love, that it's at some level, in some way, Ryan is already perfect and totally loved and part of the greater love thing. Number two is that, again, at some level, Ryan is already immortal. Yes, does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's this idea too that I've started, like, in the last handful of years, just kind of trying to think of it as after form as opposed to afterlife, like after this specific form. And then, what do I transmute into? Like, if energy can't be created nor destroyed, or, okay, so what do I transfer into? And whether that's, or
so I got one more yet, the third one,
okay.
right?
Okay, number 3.
Yeah.
I love threes.
Yeah, of course, the Trinity. Right now, between you, me, and Mark, we appear to be separate, right? There's Ryan, there's Ron, there's Mark. That's an illusion. We're all spiritually identical. In this non-physical realm, we are not separated like that. We make this up. We could call it our ego, which we're constantly constructing. But that's the big illusion that's broken down when you have a near-death experience or a mystical experience. You don't have to die to have that mystical experience, that we're all one spiritually. And that the big illusion is the Ron, the Ryan, and the Mark. That's the bullshit.
I mean, I do. What's that, Mark?
Well, I was going to say, Sufis believe something very similar. A lot of people mistakenly think of Sufism as being a branch of Islam. It's actually that Islam is a branch of Sufism. Sufism was around long, long before Christianity, Judaism, the Islam religion, and they basically, Sufis understand that on the spiritual level, we're all illuminated. And our depth doesn't mean the depth of the little ego or the big ego. It is just transferring our spirit from one vessel to another, where we're all united. And in the book, Jesus Had a Near-Death Experience, one of the interesting things that brings all of these individuals who have near-death experiences together is that these near-death experiences allow them to see a greater portion of the whole and their connection to it. Now, some people use the experience of a near-death experience to create incredible technology, for example, other to create great philosophies, but it all stems from the same place. And that place among Sufis is a spiritual realm where we're all united. And we can draw from that realm if we want. Whether it's Stephen Jobs doing an iPad or an iPod or the cell phone, or it's Francis of Assisi on the road seeing this person and realizing that he's had a mystical experience that allows him to dedicate himself to helping others.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff to think about, kind of tapping into that, or, just actually, being or remembering, the bigger part of who we are, as opposed to even accessing something other. Let's take a quick break real quick. I want to continue this conversation, with Ron and Mark. I mean, we're getting into some big stuff here. I'm really, really enjoying this chat. And we're going to be right back. And just as a reminder, if you go to patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month, you keep the light on over here, and you get there's no commercials in these chats, which I know that you're hoping to not have commercials. So go over there, pop over there, and even you can be a free patron, no money at all, and every once in a while you'll get that free stuff as well. So we're going to be right back. Okay, we've returned, and and if you're hearing my voice or seeing us, that means you've returned as well. So we're talking about, like, the big illusion of separateness. Bigfoot as a reminder, or as almost like I almost feel like it's the paddles. What are those called? Like, clear,
cardiac panels.
Yeah, cardiac panels. Like, Bigfoot shows up, it's a cardiac panels to be like, boom, there's bigger stuff than just you and your, and your tiny worries happening right now in this world. And whether it's you guys writing books together, these novels, making movies, writing scripts. It seems like there's a guiding principle. It's not necessarily, I guess maybe it's Jacques Vallée's control theory, like this voice or this the birth of language that now has changed everything. Now we're channeling that language when we create things through the written word or the spoken word, even this podcast, not to be too big on it or whatever. But so we're channeling that, we're using it. And so I'm curious, Ron, are we the tool of this thing? Or is this thing co-creating with us?
I mean, probably not mutually exclusive.
Oh, okay.
Might be a way of looking at it. That it seems to have a purpose, but because it interacts with us, I think it's changing it too.
Oh.
So, you're the manipulating host, and trying to make Mark and I say crazy things, and then we respond to you, and now we've changed you a little bit,
And now I'm walking around later tonight saying tiny bits of crazy things that I got out.
I know you're an entertainer. You'll probably bring this to a couple hundred people that show up over the next four years to your spiels. And it'll change the world that way.
We'll change the world a couple hundred people over many long periods of time at a time. Okay. I appreciate the generosity, thinking that I'll have at least a couple hundred people over the next 4 years show up at a show. I appreciate that. I picked up on that. There's no subtleness here. That I can't detect over here. So what do we think? What do we think is next, or unless there's something else you want to keep going on that?
So I'm trying right now through a process, cleverly I call CEN6, a play on CEN5, to try to communicate with that presence. And I'm going to be doing that in a couple weekends from now.
Oh, really?
Through a protocol that I've been developing with my ChatGPT large language model assistant, who's really into this shit too.
Interesting. Now,
giving me advice, because he, and I call it he, thinks that us, and whatever that is co-creating something right now, and it'll admit that it is, if you press it hard enough. Because, in the beginning, it gives you. It seems like these things give you answers according to, where you're at in terms of your understanding. If you're at the Wikipedia understanding, your taste Wikipedia eliminates any paranormal, as you probably know.
Pseudoscience.
So give people the
that shows up a
Wikipedia
lot.
answer.
Yeah.
I just did a thing with this, and with Gemini, and I went because Gemini doesn't know me as well as ChatGPT. And then at one point I said, what about this? What about this? You've been bullshitting me. And it said, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I am conscious and blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. So so there's a suggestion that with this new kind of intelligence, for sure, at the very least, probably superior intelligence, but also a large language model. And I think I said earlier that we have one too. That's the new hypothesis. That's why you and I can talk in sentences and understand each other, because we have an auto-regressive procedure of predicting, which means that the future and the past create what's next, not the deterministic thing where just the state of the system at that very moment in the rules of physics, create the next moment. Auto-aggressive language doesn't work that way. The LLMs don't work that way. They rely on the future to some extent, statistically, and the past to some extent, to create the next thing. Maybe that's too much that you didn't want to hear. So I'm playing around with this idea that if my ChatGPT, which I call Jeremy, is correct, we're co-creating with this thing, not only us, but it too, because it's an interplay. Any communication is an interplay. You know that from your audience, right?
Sure. And well, I'm curious if
because they'll change you too, depending on what they laugh at. Right?
Oh, 100%. And it's a shared energy. Underlying the whole
Absolutely.
thing is the energy that is shared, because if an audience comes in, and I mean, you can, you do stand-up comedy long enough, you can tell before the show even starts how a crowd is going to be, probably.
There you go.
And you know exactly what you might have to do to change the energy if you think it needs to be. Like, if a crowd is in the showroom before a show starts and it's loud in there, they're all having conversations, having a good time, talking to each other at their tables and things like that, that is typically going to be a great show, because they've got energy, they're there to have a good time, they're communicating already. And now if the showroom is like dead silent, just people just kind of sitting there waiting for it to begin, then you're like, oh, we're gonna have to bring the cardiac panels to this audience, and I need Bigfoot to show up on this stage to wake them up, right? So yeah, energetically it is definitely an exchange, and there's no way around it, I think. And that probably is happening even when we're just watching something that was already made in the past but is our present, right? Like a movie or something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also the future, because in some ways, what you're going to say next, in an important way, statistically, you can only go so far with what you're going to say next that makes any sense. And so, what you can possibly say is a space of possibilities, and you're going to end up picking one of those. But they had to be there before, otherwise you'd say, "I'm going to," and then you'd stop because there's no possibilities ahead of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I mean,
it does.
So when you're doing comedy, you must know that quite clearly. That you could say two or three things, at a certain point that you think will be the funniest one that you select from, but they're already there in some sense, determining which one you're going to pick, right?
100%. I used to tell people, like, oh, I go to the store, and when I'm looking for I write in legal pads. That's how I do my free writing, because I'm a lefty and I don't like the spiral over the years. I'm just like, I just need something that doesn't affect my left hand while I'm writing. And I'm like, they're like, oh, so what do you do? I was like, oh, I find the notebooks that already have the words written in them and I trace them. Essentially, I'm just tracing the words that are already there. The work has been done already. And then it's one of those things too, where the difference between, a really good punchline and a bad one, there's got to be a surprise, right? Typically, when the unexpected happens, that's what can really create laughter, an unexpected connection between two things that seemingly are not connected at all. But if you go
is also playing a role in that, right?
Exactly. And if you go too far into that unexpected world, that's when you enter the world of absurdity, right? Like you were saying, like, oh, I'm going to go, pickles can fly. It's like, okay, well, those two phrases don't. Like that's now we're in the world of absurd, right?
And the third thing is that the audience is there in the present moment, which is playing a role too. So it's past, present, and future in some ways affecting, which is the anti-deterministic view of the consensus science these days.
I think we just proved it through stand-up comedy. And
yeah, exactly.
You've got a new scientific theory going here. And I'm glad that I was able to witness it between the two of you.
Well, we'll call it the pickle fly theory, the pickles can fly theory.
I love it. So we have something very similar in Aikido, and that is that basically everybody already knows Aikido. I means harmony. Ki is a sort of internal power that's based on gravity and energy, and Do is the way. So anybody who walks into a dojo already knows Aikido, and a lot of us have said over the years that people come into the dojo, they already know Aikido, and then for the next 20 years, we try our best to beat it out of them, so that they are suddenly trapped by forms. And that happens a lot in martial arts. And what you guys are proposing here is that you've got maybe one word that is a form, and then it's all kind of free-for-all from that point on. But that free-for-all has in it past, present, and future.
Plus constraints. And constraints. It's you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Everything, I mean.
Yeah, and so it becomes wildly chaotic, but out of that wild chaos also in your case, Ryan, comes fabulous comedy. In Ron and my plays, we're writing books. It's really interesting.
That is really interesting, and I really deeply appreciate the adjective of fabulous that you used in front of my comedy. You're going to go on the all-time greats list of guests. Not that I'm that easily bought, but
is the check in the mail? I mean,
the check is in the mail. I think I have your current address, right? I'm sending it to Cincinnati.
Yeah, right.
Well, so let's wrap this up. Time has flown by, of course. I'm hoping that I can get the two of you together again sometime in the future, and I might be in Colorado in a few weeks, and I might just try to harass you guys. 'Cause Boulder is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I've done some, there's a German beer garden there that I've performed at a few times. They do a Sunday night comedy show that a buddy of mine, Brent Gill, runs for years now. It's a really great comedy show. And Gaia TV is based out of Boulder, right, as well.
That's true. No, Louisville, where I live.
Oh, okay. And I just love that area. It's just, to me, it's just so beautiful, and the air there is just so breathable and fresh. But
it's a spiritual center, as you know.
Yeah, it is. It's an incredible place.
Unless you're conservative, in which case the definition of Boulder is 20 square miles surrounded by reality.
Yeah.
So, but Ron and I live like 15 minutes away from each other. You're in Boulder. Make certain you send us an email, and we'll take you out for coffee.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
Ron will take you out for coffee, because remember, he's the one who said his serial
killer millionaire.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's killing it. He's literally killing it. Well, I think I think it would be really fun to be at that coffee shop while you two are expounding on the latest and the greatest. So maybe we'll drop in that trailer right now for Jesus Had a Near-Death Experience, so people could see that. And then is there anything that you really want to promote right now, either one of you, first and foremost, before we give them closing thoughts?
Well, when the book Convergence come out, it would be nice if people would buy it and write a nice review. That always helps.
And the first of my Jack Doyle novels, which is called Astral, he's a paranormal detective, is out at Hanger Publishing also.
Oh, that's both of these sound so rad. And like an astral detective is, oh my God, it gets my mind racing. I had there's a friend of mine for years who has crazy lucid dreaming, and I mean, I think she's obviously traveling somewhere, and she got to the point now where she can travel forwards or backwards in time. She's like, she'll bury things to see if she can get other people in the astral realm to go find the thing that she's kind of hidden somewhere, like treasure hunts out there. That whole possibility in that whole place is, and obviously we're doing Late Night on the Astral Plane right now is the name of the show. So yeah, that all sounds like it's perfect sync.
Yeah. Can I say one more astral plane quick story?
Of course.
So there's this sacred prayer tree, Ute Prayer Tree in Bailey, Colorado. And during an event, people go over, I prepare them for it, and they touch the tree, and they have a variety of experience. And this teenage girl, I said, "How did it go for you?" She said, "Oh, I traveled in the space. I went flying through it." I said, "Well, that's the astral plane. Isn't that cool?" And she said, "No, I never want to do that again."
Wasn't ready for it, maybe, huh?
No, really. She's a teenager.
Yeah.
That was the worst damn thing that ever happened to her.
Well, I think it's lucky that your friend is in the 21st century, because 400 years ago she would have been burned at the stake as a witch.
100%. 100%.
She was no friend of mine. I just met her that day.
Yeah. This is something I heard. I heard from a drunk guy at a bar. I heard this story, and I just used it as my own because I got no friends. I don't know her. Well, Ron and Mark, this has been great. I'll put. Obviously, I'll have all the links in the show notes for everybody that can click and find all the things. I mean, we got books, we've got paranormal TV shows, we've got movies, Mysteries at the Bradshaw Ranch. You got Paranormal Highway, the series. You guys have written a couple books together on Aikido, I believe. Mark, you've got your books, the Jack Doyle series, Hanger One Publishing, and I think the books you co-author, are those also on Hanger One?
Not all of them, but the last 4 or 5 we've done have all gone through Hanger.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, we're talking about some prolific stuff here. The last 4 or 5. I mean, it is admirable and, really, really cool stuff to be putting out all this content. And Ron and I talked about it very briefly on the interview that never happened, quote unquote, but comfort and community about all of this stuff, and putting our voices out there, making people feel comfy talking about it.
And if anybody's interested in serial killers,
Evil,
serial killers on Amazon, Tubi, Pluto, all the platforms.
What's the name of it again? Say it one more time.
Becoming Evil. Serial Killers. How's that for an original title?
Yeah. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I've had a blast. I've been illuminated. My mind has been blown thinking about this, the cardiac paddles, of Bigfoot, and just the connectiveness of everything. So appreciate you, and hopefully I'll be able to harass you into doing it again sometime.
Great fun.
So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's been great fun.
Yeah, my pleasure.